I feel like it's just like a lot of ignorance. Like some people still think that Islam is like a culture. Islam isn't people.
Oh, well, I'm the only black person in the room, so I have to explain what's going on in the black community and explain, why racism is a thing or why oppression is a thing.
A lot of innovation comes from black Muslims, but they don't really get as much credit.
Women that they do have, they usually end up taking off their hijabs in literally every like Muslim show.
Like, do you speak Muslim? No, I do not speak Muslim. I speak English, right? Like,
especially at a PWI, the intersectionality is not there, so it feels like you have to pick and choose between your identities where it shouldn't be that way.
Every show and movie.
Oh, there are no Muslim shows.
That's another thing, there are no Muslim shows.
But there is BMTV.
There is, so if you haven't subscribed, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I definitely believe that there's a lack of representation of black Muslims in particular.
Even in the black community, there's not a lot of black Muslims. And in the Muslim community, there's not a lot of representation of black Muslims. So it's just like everywhere except our own community, we're lacking.
In terms of media, if there is a Muslim girl, most of the time they're not black. Rarely you ever see a singular Muslim girl who wears a hijab, let alone a black Muslim girl who wears a hijab. So like, there's a lot of layers that goes into it.
I think people just have a problem with the hijab. I think they immediately see it as like somebody who, I don't know, isn't human, is probably oppressed, and doesn't have a lot to say.
And oftentimes when you do see a Muslim girl, they're ripping off their hijab. Like the other day I was watching Grey's Anatomy and I went on a whole rant about this.
If there's gonna be more black Muslim or Muslim representation in the media, it needs to be accurate, not biased, and not fitting to some idea that Muslims hate their religion or hate themselves. A lot of us, majority of us, like being Muslim.
Like when you think of a Muslim person, you see someone like Pakistani.
People expect you to be fair-skinned or light-skinned.
Or Saudi Arabian. Or
from an Arab country or from the Middle East.
Syrian.
Being from like North Africa where they're majority light-skinned. Wearing black all the time.
Arabs and Southeast Asians are looked at as authentic Muslims. The way that they practice Islam is seen as authentic. So then the ways in which Islam was indigenized and practiced in Africa, me being from West Africa, is not seen as authentic. It's not seen as correct or real Islam. And those type of words are very dangerous because it adds to the erasure of African practices and the erasure of black Muslims.
The way we're often taught by non-black Muslim scholars is that there's something wrong with our culture. Mustafa Briggs, his main thing that kind of, I guess, put him on the map was Beyond Bilal. And that whole thing is about African culture and relationship to Islam. Because oftentimes people think, Islam traveled to Africa, even though there was a lot of origination of what Islam is, and like Islamic scholars and schools and all these things which are then neglected because all we think of is Bilal because he was the first black man. Like he was the one who did the adhan, so he's like the main black person you think in terms of Islamic history, not even like cultural wise, and like Mansa Musa.
The Islamic classes that I went to were often taught by African Muslims, and I remember I went to Islamic classes and I could never understand why we were memorizing. I wanted to know tafsir, I wanted to get deep into it, unpack the messages, but then reading the Walking Quran, I realized that there was a reason for that. Having a book that was about black Muslims helped me unlearn and helped me understand.
And even like in like some masjids or like some Muslim communities, black Muslims that are not like Sudanese or Somali are severely isolated, and oftentimes you get the question, are you a revert? That question, are you a revert, is something that comes a lot. Or like, how did you find Islam? But like, is it not possible for me to be black and Muslim just as I was born? My whole family is Muslim. We came from Nigeria.
But also just in like social media too, like one thing that I thought was interesting is like I was on TikTok, like I had an obsession with TikTok. There were a lot of Muslims on TikTok, but one thing that I noticed was that the representation of black Muslims on the app was like very little.
Yeah.
And it's not even that they aren't on the app.
The algorithm isn't, I want to say against them, but more so it's not promoting them as much as it's promoting, say, light-skinned Muslims or, I don't know. Arab Muslims. A lot of Muslims that are like women on TikTok are into like fashion and, modest fashion. And I know there are Black Muslim women out there that are also into fashion, and you don't see them as much as you see these Arab women that are kind of like, I don't want to say pushed more, but celebrated more as far as like media goes, as far as fashion goes.
So there is this emergence of Black Muslim women within the fashion industry, and that's great. It's powerful. I love how the hijab is being represented in such a beautiful way that's not seen as ugly or seen as alien, but it's seen as beautiful. It's seen as a crown. The thing is, we are not there yet. A lot of the models that I have seen have been of lighter skin and from East Africa. Whenever we think about someone who is being Black and a Muslim, oftentimes East Africa is also seen as the norm and not West Africa.
They kind of have a standard of what the Black Muslim should be, and if you're not Sudanese or Somali or somewhere in like East Africa, then it's kind of just like, it's not really something that's normal, even though we have such a large Muslim community here. Like the Nigerian Muslim community that we have in Rhode Island alone, and like even with NCNMO, like you see us, but it's kind of just like you just continue to ignore us. So
personally, that lack of representation affects me in a way just because people, like other people in society that don't identify with me, like don't really understand like the richness of our like culture and like heritage, as well as like just the intellect that we have. It's really like swept under the rug. Like most of the things that people talk about, like great moments in history, tend to be like white European people or something like identifying in that population. So like us Black Muslims don't get that type of recognition, and because of that, I feel like that kind of carries over to now. Like we're not really seen as like very powerful people.
It kind of, sometimes it does pushes me away from believing in the things that I think I can do.
Also, when we talk about representation, there's a lot of Black Muslim youth who are on college campuses that do not know how to maneuver their identity, their race, and also the college culture, college campus culture. And that's due to the fact that there is not enough representation that is giving them the steps and the guides on how to still hold on to their spirituality and how to still engage and have fun as a college student. Just because you're Muslim does not mean that you cannot enjoy yourself, but you have to do it in a way that is halal, period. And as Black Muslims, we're not taught how to do that, and that's a problem.
So being a Black Muslim, especially at a Jesuit institution that's predominantly white, it is very tough, because I feel like a lot of us might feel like we have to like identify as one or the other. Like there's not really much space to like for like Black Muslims specifically. So you either like go to like, for example, Black Student Forum or ASO, or you go to the MSA, but it's not like interconnected at all. So people feel like they have to pick and choose.
when you don't see yourself doing medicine, when you don't see yourself doing engineering, when you don't see yourself doing all these things, or even just everyday things, it's like you no longer exist, and you do not know how to exist in the world. So if you're not given visual representations, like a lot of us are visual learners, a lot of us, what we see is what we accept as our own.
Lack of representation comes back harsher than ever, because you have this new generation, this new wave of Black Muslim people who want to do new things, but then it's like they don't have people around them who have done them, so then they have to reach outside of their community, and then they have to reach into communities who hold that stigma and who hold that belief. It makes it harder for you to want to continue doing that thing instead of just being able to take the easy route and just do something else where there's already a lot of representation for your community. So it's like that lack of representation can further deter people from going down that route.
Within my own experience of being a Black African Muslim woman in college, I had lost a sense of self. I was getting so over-involved into all of these different things because, you know, Black women are socialized to have to over-involve themselves and hold the weight and be the foundation, that had a major impact on my mental health. I felt powerless. I did not understand the inner power I had as a Black Muslim. If I was to have other Black Muslim platforms that were teaching us about how to maneuver spaces, white spaces like this, like college, as a Black Muslim, I don't feel like I would have gone through that.
A Black Muslim woman that inspires me or I look up to is the Village Auntie on Instagram.
she is a sex therapist. It's something that you don't really find in the Muslim community. She's a black woman, she's Muslim, but she talks about sex.
It talks about, sex, periods, reproductive system, having a child, intimacy and sex and stuff like that. Like, she's very outspoken in that. In that topic in Islam, like, people are really vocal about it. Not even our own parents, our own like community helps you talk about these things.
Aisha Haroon, she's a black Muslim social media influencer.
Like one of them is like Mustafa Briggs. I'm not sure if you know who he is. Another one is Mamadou Tav. Like there's a couple of them, and like I feel like they all do like pretty important
And they're
things.
a group too.
Yeah, and they're a group too.
They're called the Baraka Boys. Like if you look them up, that's what it would be. But it's Mustafa Briggs, the Gambian. It's like a good couple.
Henima, she is signed to some big modeling agency.
IMG.
And what I love about her is she keeps her hijab on. She does not compromise her hijab for fashion. And I love that.
I also feel like it's interesting that us in the U.S. are looking at people in the U.K.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I can't really think of too many people of that nature in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like even me myself, I don't even know, because we're not really being shown that many people that look like us that we can look up to in that way. So if you know people, drop them down below.
So we can know too.
Yeah.
Tariq Toure. He's a poet, and I wasn't really that into poetry before, but then I bought his book called 2 Parts Oxygen, which is a book of poems about like being black, being Muslim, like everything. Like there's a poem on Ramadan, there's a poem on college football. It's just like many different aspects of his identity, and I feel like he's very well spoken, which like makes his poetry even more powerful.
Dr. Suad Abdul Kabir is a black Muslim woman who's doing great things in her work. Dr. Rudolph Ware is doing great things in his work.
I really look up to Ilhan Omar. Right?
Yeah,
She is powerful. But she is a refugee, and she's a black Muslim woman, and she wears a hijab, and she really inspires me, because it's like, okay, well, if she can do it coming from a country and then coming over here as a refugee and having to pull herself up and like basically doing it alone, because there's no one looks like her in politics now. So just being able to do that by herself, like it shows me and it shows a lot of other black Muslim women that we can do it ourselves in our own field if she can do it at one of the highest levels that you can be at.
Sapelo Square is a great organization.
I like Shahed a lot.
I know.
Oh my gosh, I love Shahed is big though.
Shout out to my girl Latifa, who's the producer behind Black Muslim TV. If you didn't know, she's the one that put this all together. So go
Follow
check
her.
her out.
Follow the page.
Like they know what they're talking about. They understand the Quran, but they're also applying it to them, being black, and they're not forgetting their culture, right? They're not trading their culture to try to be Desi, or they're not trading their culture to try to be Pakistani. You know what I'm trying to say? Like they're heavily involved in their black community, but they're also heavily into Islam and what Islam means. I listen to music, and that's cool. I like to write poetry, and that's cool. Like I have friends. Like I don't know. I'm a normal human being. I don't think that being Muslim means I can shut myself off from the world, because that's what is kind of portrayed. But like I'm also black, so I have like a lot of culture, and I think I can express that while simultaneously being Muslim and not, doing anything wrong.
It definitely puts a lot of pressure on you to just be great when like we're all humans and we all make mistakes, and we want to have space and room to like mess up and fall down and then get back up again. And so showing up for one race, for a certain race, and showing up for the religion, and being black and being Muslim, it puts a lot of pressure.
I don't know. Yeah. We're getting there, is what I'll say. It's all progress, and we're nowhere near where we need to be, but we're getting there.
You can't call yourself representative of everyone and diverse if you don't have somebody who represents everyone. And obviously black Muslim women are a big population, so why aren't you seeing them being represented?
Keep both of their identities, like they're both as important, and we don't have to choose whether we're black or Muslim, like we're both, and that's like the first step into like making sure we're representing ourselves, and then like having other people realize that we're, I guess, like important and need representation. Yeah.